All right, let's get right into it. We all think about food poisoning, but what if you could stop one of the absolute deadliest foodborne germs before it even starts? Well, today, we are digging into a really cool study that shows how scientists built a kind of super probiotic to do exactly that. So first, let's meet the villain of our story, Listeria monocytogenes. This thing is a really nasty piece of work. You can find it in contaminated foods, think soft cheeses, deli meats, sometimes even things like cantaloupe. And here's the scary part. Unlike so many other bugs out there, we have no vaccine for it. And when I say nasty, I mean it. The stakes here are incredibly high. For people who are vulnerable, the elderly, pregnant women, anyone with a weaker immune system, this isn't just a bad stomach bug. It is terrifyingly lethal. We're talking a fatality rate of 20 to 30%. This is a very, very serious threat. Which brings us to the big problem scientists were facing. They knew Listeria was a master escape artist, an expert at breaking into our bodies. So the question became, how on earth do you fight an enemy that seems to hold the master key to your own cells? Okay, so to figure out the solution, first we have to really understand the villain's playbook. Listeria doesn't just randomly bump into our defenses. Oh no, it has a very specific and wickedly effective strategy for getting inside. So its main weapon, its secret sauce, is this molecule on its surface called the Listeria adhesion protein, or just LAP for short. Now, the best way to think about this protein is as the bad guy's master key. It is perfectly shaped to pick the lock on the cells that line our gut. And here's how the heist goes down. First, that LAP key searches for and finds a very specific lock on the surface of our gut cells. This lock is a receptor called HSP60. As soon as that key turns on the lock, it sends a signal that basically tells our gut cells to loosen up. The tight connections that form our protective barrier start to weaken, creating these tiny little gaps. And that is all Listeria needs. It just slips right through and starts its deadly journey into our bloodstream. And, this isn't just a cute analogy. This is what it actually looks like. This image from the study is the real deal. That glowing green you see, that's the pathogen's LAP key, and you can see it physically grabbing onto the HSP60 locks, which are shown in white, right on the surface of our gut cells. It is literally a photograph of the break-in happening. So once they knew the villain's plan, the researchers came up with this incredibly clever countermove. They decided they weren't just going to build a better wall, they were going to hack the attacker's own system. They started with the idea of probiotics. Now, we all know regular probiotics are good for us, but they have their limits. They're often not very good at actually sticking around in our gut, and they're just no match for a really determined enemy like Listeria. So what the researchers needed was a super probiotic, one that was built for one job and one job only, to stop this specific killer. And this led them to the beautiful, simple idea at the very heart of this entire study. They just asked themselves this question: what if we took the bad guy's own key and we gave it to the good guys? And that is exactly what they did. They took a totally harmless, common probiotic bacterium, one called Lactobacillus casei, and through some clever bioengineering, they made it display that Listeria adhesion protein, that master key, all over its own surface. But here's where they got really smart, a really clever twist. To make the whole thing much, much safer, they didn't take the key from the killer Listeria. Instead, they took it from a harmless cousin, a non-pathogenic type called Listeria innocua. Now get this, its key is 99.4% identical, and it works just as well at grabbing onto the locks. So you get all the power of the key, but without using any DNA from the actual dangerous pathogen. It's a brilliant safety feature. So our hero is assembled. It was time for the showdown. Could this custom-built probiotic actually protect a living creature from what should have been a lethal dose of Listeria? And what you're seeing here is the strategy in action. This is inside a mouse's colon. The engineered probiotics, which are stained brown, have used their new keys to grab all the locks on the gut wall, forming this incredible protective shield. And by doing that, they physically block the dangerous Listeria, stained pink, from ever getting a chance to latch on. There's just no room for them. It's a perfect example of competitive exclusion. The results were just stunning. Look at this chart. It shows how much Listeria actually made it into the organs of the mice after 48 hours. The group that got a normal probiotic, you can see the pathogens spread everywhere. But the mice that got the super probiotic, the Listeria count was practically zero. The shield held. The invasion was stopped cold. And this, right here, this is the bottom line. This is the ultimate proof. A jaw-dropping 92% of the mice that were treated with the super probiotic survived a lethal infection. Now, compare that to just 60% for a normal probiotic. I mean, the hero strategy was a massive success. But believe it or not, the story doesn't even end there. It turns out our little hero doesn't just act like a shield. It has bonus powers that actively help the body fight back. So on top of just blocking the bad guys, this engineered probiotic actually strengthens those junctions between the gut cells, making the whole barrier tougher. It also calms down the dangerous inflammation that Listeria creates, and it even acts like a beacon, calling helpful immune cells to the area to clean up any mess. It's not just guarding the city walls, it's actively repairing them and calling in reinforcements. So, what's the big takeaway here? What does this mean for the future? Well, this research isn't really just about Listeria. It points to a whole new way of thinking about how we prevent diseases. This is a genuine paradigm shift. You can see we're moving from this first era of traditional probiotics for just general health into this new breakthrough moment of bioengineered probiotics that can hunt down and neutralize a specific enemy. And that just blows the doors wide open for a future where we could have custom-designed probiotics to fight all sorts of different diseases. And that's the really exciting thought to end on. This whole strategy, giving the good guys the bad guys' key, it works beautifully against this one killer. So if we can build a probiotic to outsmart Listeria, what other deadly germs could we go after next? The possibilities here are just beginning to unfold.